am talking to Renee Carr. Renee is the Director of Adult Protective Services at SeniorCare, and we are talking about the dark but very real issue of elder abuse. Renee, can you start by describing what you're seeing in terms of reporting and elder abuse? Like, what are the different forms? We all know that there could be physical abuse and neglect, but what are the more subtle issues?
So there are 6 different, we would call them subtypes of different types of abuse. There's the unknown physical abuse and sexual abuse, but then there's always the verbal or emotional abuse that usually coincide with other forms, financial exploitation, caregiver neglect, and by and large, our biggest kind of category that we see most often, time and time again, is self-neglect. And that's really when there's no identified person who's responsible for the allegation of maybe some type of abuse, but maybe the elders just not really managing their self-care adequately enough to be safe in different ways in the community. And really that's often just a sign that maybe they don't know what resources are out there and just they need a little more help to stay safe at home.
And you at Adult Protective Services are receiving reports of this sort of thing. And how do you receive the reports? Who's doing the reporting? How do you handle them?
Yep. So absolutely any person can report at any point in time. That's really important to know. There are kind of 2 categories of reporters. There are the mandated reporters who are professionals that you would commonly think of, maybe first responders, physicians, nurses, visiting nurses who go into homes, therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, people who really directly engage with people on a face-to-face visit or treatment modality. And then there are the lay people who are maybe the non-professionals, family members, or just other professionals in the community who are not mandated to report, but they often catch wind of some situation or witness some event that just causes some questions and concerns. It's really important to know that absolutely anyone though can report. All the reports that come in, they're evaluated on the same merit. Usually it's someone who never has the full story, but there's just a piece of information that's a potential concern to an elder's well-being. And we definitely would welcome anyone reporting if they have a legitimate concern of someone's welfare.
And we are going to post the phone number to call to place a report, and we'll also have it written in the copy. So what would be signs? What sorts of signs would someone be alerted to?
So depending on the different types of abuse or neglect maybe being presenting itself, I should say, there are always different signs and symptoms, and it's really important to know that it would vary from person to person and case to case, because we all have our kind of internal thresholds and strengths and coping mechanisms. But there are the obvious signs, bruises, unexplained bruising or cuts or welts or burn marks. In more serious cases, strangulation marks or ligature marks where there might be a restraint of some type. There's, things that people don't think about, maybe chronic urinary tract infections that are not the typical for a person, or maybe there's pain when someone is using the bathroom, or an onset of fear of personal care could be a real indicator of maybe some more sinister kind of abuse going on of a sexual nature. Weight loss or missed medical appointments, withdrawal from social activities or family engagements, varying presentations of an elder depending on who's around them can also be a sign of maybe there's some emotional abuse going on, or they're fearful to speak their mind or take any action on their own accord. If there's been recent activity with bank accounts, whether an account was opened electronically, which is not the typical for older generation, really. If there's been people added to accounts without a good explanation, if there's changes in estate planning, where the elder really can't articulate why that's being done, changes of beneficiaries, changes of fiduciaries, meaning powers of attorney or healthcare proxies. All of those things, are potential indicators.
Mm-hmm. And how, once a report has been filed with Adult Protective Services, what happens then?
So once the report comes in, when it comes in, as you know, through the central intake unit, or it can come in through a website, it immediately gets queued to us at SeniorCare for, hey, you have something to look at electronically. A screener, either myself or someone else, will look at that report very quickly and make a determination then and there it reaches the level of protective services need. So there are enough risk factors that would warrant a civil investigation to begin. If so, we go ahead and we screen that in for an assignment to a caseworker who will begin the investigation right away. Everything happens pretty quickly. Once that report is received and screened, the clock is ticking and that worker starts working it immediately, and they have the case for 30 days by law. We have 30 days to complete that assessment.
And to be just totally blunt, does someone knock on that elder's door? Do first responders show up? How does that work? Because that could be very scary, right?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So I'll be honest. We follow a very clear mandate that's set forth by the state. Typically, our initial visits to elders are just that. They are visits to elders. They are unannounced. We really feel like that is the best way to get an accurate read and picture on a situation. Obviously, if there are factors or information in the report that would indicate a safety of an elder or a worker would increase with that unannounced home visit, we make modifications and allowances for maybe there has to be a phone contact first, or maybe a meeting is going to be set up outside of the home for some safety precaution. We always keep that in the forefront of our minds, but by and large, the initial visits are unannounced and directly to the elder. They are the focus of our investigation. We want to hear what they want and how they feel and what they think about situations, and then we kind of branch out from there and talk to other people.
And are you addressing issues with really elders living in private homes, private circumstances, as opposed to facilities? Are you doing
Yes. So in Massachusetts Adult Protective Services, we are responsible for those elder abuse investigations that include elders who live in a community setting typically. So it could be a private home, it could be a private apartment, it could be a subsidized apartment or a congregate setting, an assisted living. It would not include elders who are residing in a long-term care facility. So if they're there for short-term rehab, post a surgery, that's one thing. But if they are residents there, that would not be our jurisdiction. If an elder lives in a licensed group home of some sort, maybe overseen by the Department of Mental Health or the Department of Developmental Services, that also is not our jurisdiction. Those would be other state agencies.
Great. And there have been all kinds of reports about other kinds of social norms falling apart during this pandemic. What are you seeing during the pandemic in your?
So what we're seeing here at this agency is we're very grateful reports are still coming in consistently, but our numbers have been reduced, and that would make sense. The people who typically report are often mandated reporters or family members who are close to a situation, and they may not be seeing that elder as they had been, so they don't have the information. Reports had been trending up pretty consistently. We had a steady increase, probably I would say the last couple fiscal years, an average 15% increase each year. Recently, our reports have been down month to month, probably close to maybe 30% of our typical. But we really do attribute that to elders not being in their adult day health centers and being seen by professionals. Family members who typically are making those weekly routine visits to them to check on them aren't able to because of their own, self-isolation or precautions they have to take. Elders are not getting to routine doctor's appointments because those have been reduced for public safety concerns. So all of those reasons are really contributing factors. We fully expect and are prepared for those numbers to increase quickly when things return, as we say, back to normal, or the world opens up a bit. We are really preparing for that. We're definitely, realizing that there's a reason behind the reduction right now.
Right, and it's not necessarily good news that there's a reduction.
No, it's not necessarily good news. In fact, the reality is we all know, whether we're talking about children or elders, reports of types of abuse and wrongdoing are always underreported. They're drastically underreported, and elder abuse is no different. I think right now it's not the intention of anyone. I just think it is the way it is. They don't have the firsthand information to report or to share right now.
So we're, I'm sure, just like everyone else, the elders are living under bizarrely isolated circumstances, more isolated than usual. So what are you worried about with this population?
We're worried about everything. We're worried about, we cannot emphasize enough how important socialization is for elders, for their mental health, for even people with dementia. Being connected and keeping those connections is so very important. And in this time where those adult day health centers, maybe where someone goes 5 days a week and has their medical care and has the nutrition and has their socialization aren't in place, though that absence can really contribute to a decline of functional ability and cognitive ability. We are seeing an increase in self-neglect tendencies and depression, a rise of suicidal thinking, and it's a concern. That in conjunction with reduced medical care for maybe conditions that are chronic and progressive is really a concern. It doesn't take a long amount of time for an elder to deteriorate.
Mm. So hard. We talked last week to Susan Dowdy, who is the head of the Caregiver Support Services, and I'm sure that your two programs intersect a lot because the kids
Absolutely.
so much stress.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, what you see is caregivers, it is a full-time job. You are devoted physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And doing that in any form is taxing and a challenge. Now having to assume that maybe instead of 1 or 2 days a week or 1 or 2 hours a day to full time, because maybe now that caregiver has to assume that responsibility because the programming where the elder typically goes day to day, or the services that had been received in the home aren't happening. They're on, suspension due to the pandemic. That's a lot more stress on a caregiver. Taking on that role and that responsibility is so very important, and those limits that sometimes caregivers impose on themselves for good reason now are stretched, and it's yeah, it wears on everybody. We constantly communicate with our caregiver support program. We make many referrals because as we see maybe an elder through stages and needs increasing and responsibilities and stressors increasing on the family in different ways, it's really important to keep that dialogue and that communication going for the welfare of the entire family unit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to give us the website if people want to? We will have the phone numbers up there, but how can people reach out to you?
So people can reach out to us. The 800 number is 24/7, 365 days a year. It's 800-922-2275. And a trained intake worker will ask a set of questions to really get a good handle on the situation at hand and go ahead and put that into an intake and get that off to us here at SeniorCare. The other way is electronically. You can go on the website. What we do ask is if someone's going to file on the web, please be certain that it is not an emergent situation. If it seems more emergent, please call into that 800 number. That will ensure it to be timely, received timely, and a potential, on-call worker may have to respond. So the website, you can reach the website through mass.gov/elder-report-abuse, I believe. I'll be very honest, I can Google it and it comes up very quickly. There are links on the SeniorCare page as well.
So they can go to the SeniorCare page, but we will also have this mass.gov. So.
Mass.gov, yep, there are links. Okay. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Renee, for talking to us today. And
thank you.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Yeah, and please look for us out there in the community. We'll have signs out there. June is Elder Abuse Awareness Month. So we may not be holding our typical rallies like we do in person, but trust me, the word's still getting out there and the awareness is still being shed out there.
Great. Well, thanks again.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.